حضورنا الكريم، مساء الخير. ما زلنا مستمرين بتقديم الجلسات في قمة المعرفة ل 2018. أشكر لكم هذا التواجد عندنا في هذه الجلسة، أرحب فيكم جميعا. كما أود أن أرحب بصديقي وأخي الإعلامي سعود الكعبي، شاكر لك هذا التواجد معنا، يستحق التحية. إذن حضورنا الكريم، الجلسة الثالثة تأتيكم بعنوان الاقتصاد الرقمي والاقتصاد المعرفي، تنافس أم تكامل، وتدور محاورها حول الاقتصاد الرقمي باعتباره إحدى ركائز اقتصاد المعرفة والاستهلاك الرقمي في اقتصاد المعرفة، وكيفية إسهام اقتصاد المعرفة في نشوء الاقتصاد الرقمي. يتحدث فيها كل من الدكتور أحمد بن علي، نائب رئيس أول اتصالات المؤسسة والناطق الرسمي باسم مجموعة اتصالات، يستحق التحية. والسيد سايمون جالبين، العضو المنتدب لمجلس التنمية الاقتصادية في البحرين، يستحق التحية. والسيد سارفارز علام، رئيس مجلس الإدارة لمجموعة شركات تكسبو، يستحق التحية. ويدير الجلسة السيد توم جودوين، إعلامي وخبير في التكنولوجيا والابتكار، يستحق التحية. إذن حضورنا الكريم، السادة المناقشين في هذه الجلسة، فلتتفضلوا على المسرح لنبدأ الجلسة الجميلة. Mr. Tom, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone. If my guests could come up now, that would be great. Welcome to this afternoon's first session. We have about an hour and 15 minutes where we're going to be discussing the relationship between kind of technology, the knowledge economy, the digital economy. We're going to touch upon themes like 5G connectivity, artificial intelligence, broadband access, investment infrastructure, software, the relationship between education and technology. So there's an awful lot to get through. I think the guests were introduced briefly before, but I just wanted to go into a little bit more information about their background because it helps contextualize them. So in no particular order, Dr. Ahmed bin Ali. Dr. Ahmed bin Ali is the Group Senior Vice President of Corporate Communications and the official spokesperson for Etisalat. You joined in 1991, backed by a strong engineering background, and you've had positions prior to now in a variety of disciplines, everything from engineering to commercial and operations manager to sales and business development manager, corporate communications manager, and vice president of corporate communications. You've represented Etisalat and the Etisalat Group at numerous regional and international conferences, seminars, and forums. Ahmed believes in combining business with goodwill, giving back in the same meaningful ways to the community and inspiring others to do the same. You've been credited with designing and managing the company's sponsorship and CSR strategy, which led from coming from hundreds of initiatives today from 3 in 2003. We also have Dr. Simon Galpin. You're the Managing Director of the Bahrain Economic Development Board. You've been in this role since February 2016. You lead the promotion of the board and also the business development of it. It's a group that's responsible for formulating and overseeing the economic development strategy of the Kingdom of Bahrain, creating the right environment to attract direct investment into the kingdom. And prior to that, I believe you enrolled in Hong Kong and Scotland, so quite a varied background, both fine places. And at the end, we have Safaraz Alam. Safaraz is the presiding chairman of Texbo Group of companies. You're also the CEO and co-founder of Hashmove, which is a smart marketplace for the logistics industry. For the last decade, under Safran's leadership, the companies have delivered some really big, significant investment in IT infrastructure, which has created an enormous amount of growth. Hashmove is a company aiming at revolutionizing logistics, and you're also involved heavily in the smart cities movement. So it's going to be great to get this diverse set of viewpoints on the changing world. They each represent quite a different background, quite a different way of looking at the changing environment. I think, Dr. Ahmed, you had like a video you wanted to sort of play to help contextualize today's discussions.
Yeah, actually, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the Knowledge Summit for this beautiful gathering. I could see a lot of youth in the hall. So in order to really cope of what was the technology few decades back and also how it's going to be in the future, I just want to show you, we'll go over the short video, which is going to set up the stage of the importance of technology and especially the telecom in our lives and how it has been developed. So the video, if you could. I tried with this video. Thank you very much. We've gone through a journey of how it was, the technology and the telecom before, and how it's going to be, what we are witnessing now, and how it's going to be in the future. If we ask ourselves a very simple question, how many of you have one mobile phones? How many have more than one mobile phones? Just ask yourself what you can do with your mobile phones, comparing of the knowledge that's available either in the internet or to communicate with others. Or reframe your question, what you cannot do with your mobile phone. That's the main thing, and this is the future. Whatever you cannot do with your mobile phones or your supercomputers at this stage, that's going to be the next step. And I think what we have done in Etisalat, we tried to bring the technology to the UAE. And I think one of the most important issues related to the technology and the digital economy is to have the state of art of infrastructure. Just imagine that what we have deployed as fiber to the home in the UAE only, we have deployed more than 3 million kilometers of fiber optic. This amount of fiber optic can take you to the moon 8 times and can wrap the earth, the whole globe, more than 75 times. We have deployed the latest technology, even with introducing of a new technology, just like a mobile. We tried, even within Etisalat, to have the whole world in your hand. We tried with our 3G network, where the penetration and the coverage is exceeding 99%, with the 4G as well. And also, since we have launched the 4G, we have gone to test the 5G. People are talking about 5G now. We have started testing the 5G back in 2014. So we're trying to bring the latest technology to the country. And thanks to the government of the UAE, who have really encouraged all industries to really work forward to the digital economy. And also, we'll see how much the middlemen of the technology, how it will save people's times and efforts in the future. If we think about, just a simple thing like a phone call, which was introduced with Etisalat, and then it goes to the SMS, and then who could live without a mobile phone now, which give you the window to the full knowledge, and also it will enhance. If we think about what we have now, if we're talking about even the transportation, Uber has no single car, but still it's leading the world in transportation and taxiing services. Similar to Booking.com, they don't even own a single hotel, but they are managing the whole reservation for people. So there is a way of development. I'm not saying that knowledge economy is important, but I think the digital economy will really integrate that gap or that delay within the normal or traditional knowledge economy to make it enhance and also to make it faster. There are several of companies which was leaders in the past. Most of them, they are gone because they have not really followed the technology and what's the latest in the digital arena. People have created machines to do some automations, and then the automation have gone to digital. Digital have gone to smart objectives and smart gadgets. Now the objective, those smart have been also developed to be robots to become a kind of a human. We're trying to even inject some of humanitarian aspects to the robots, like feelings and emotions. So we're trying to complete the full circle. So I think what I'm trying to say is that digital economy today is very important for the future, And I think it will give us the lift to the future in a faster way.
That's a great answer. So Faraz, you obviously get to travel a lot around the world, and you get to see Dubai in the context of other nations. What is it about Dubai and the technology here that you think is most inspiring and interesting, both for the digital economy and the knowledge economy?
Well, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thanks to having us here, first of all. Because we are the best.
You would say that.
Thanks to Almighty, we are living in a stage and era of a time here in Dubai. And I can take you back from 2001. You know, the one thing which this country and the leadership have given to people like us is not to be fearful about anything. And most importantly, not to be scared of attempting and doing something incredible. And when I actually see that approach in every walk of life and every industry is in here, I see nothing but the tremendous impact and tremendous result out of it. You know, that fear of being failure, of fear of being not recognized is not in our heads here. You know, when I actually just go, a few years ago, I just had a chance to basically go to an estate for a couple of years in the Silicon Valley in United States. And the first thing which I did was, as soon as I actually got my lease signed, I actually applied for internet connection there. So,
What year was this?
well, it was 2016.
Oh.
So the guy actually just got from my home, and he come with this, analog digital analyzer. And I said, whoa, what's that? So I said, well, you know what, it's a very complex machine, which we have obsoleted, 7 years ago here in Dubai. And up to my surprise, I said, well, okay, fine, so can you just give me the gateway IP? He said, what does that mean? I said, so I can connect my, two routers together. He said, well, we don't have such systems. I started to become very curious out of that incident. And then what happened was, then I said, well, hang on a second, what are you doing? He said, well, you know what, I'm just going to be, fixing those coaxial cable coming to your home. I said, aren't you having a fiber optics? He said, no, sir. We have got over 3% of fiber optics in entire Silicon Valley of United States. Sure. And look what the gentleman have just said. We have over 300 million kilometer of fiber optics, in our region. And therefore, the growth and therefore the availability and advantages of those modern technologies which we have here is astronomical, and there's no comparison for those side of things, thanks to the leadership and thanks to the companies like, Etisalat and, Do, which have actually made it possible. And of course, once you actually have a backhaul systems like that technology, businesses like us are bound to be, accelerating. We are not in a doubt, or we are not in a space where we can actually see any showstoppers, which can actually resist ourselves, which can restrain ourselves not to achieve our dream. And whatever the technology has been available at the moment, we are very thankful and very happy for that. So yes, we are living in the best time, and we are living in the best space of the geographical situation. And you can ask this question by anyone who actually experienced abroad and here, and you will find the same kind of like response from them as well.
It's very interesting. I mean, I travel probably to 30, 35 countries per year. There is that quote from William Gibson about the future already being here but not evenly distributed. And it's odd because that quote somehow implies that there are countries that are more advanced or less advanced. And often you tend to find even the advancement is not evenly distributed. So Rwanda might lead in drone development, Estonia might lead in blockchain. In the US, I still have to write checks in order to pay my landlady. If there's one thing that can be clear, it's that the future doesn't feel like it happens in America anymore. It happens in markets like this, or in places like Shenzhen, or even Bahrain. So Simon, you lead, you're part of a role called Team Bahrain. Can you kind of explain a bit more about how that works and what your role is and how you're kind of bridging technology and sort of knowledge together?
Well, Bahrain, of course, is the smallest economy in the GCC, the only island economy. And that brings with it a few challenges, because people won't generally gravitate towards Bahrain because of its market size. And the challenge for us is to try to make the size of Bahrain into into an opportunity and an advantage. And what we try to communicate is the fact that, being small means you don't have to be a big multinational like Amazon Web Services or Huawei to have access to the government. Even SMEs and high-growth startups can have access to people at all levels of government. So access is very important. And for us, it's about really trying to make sure that we have the hard infrastructure that we've been talking about to complement the developments that are taking place here in the UAE and across Saudi Arabia. But it's all very well for us to put in place the physical infrastructure. I mean, Amazon Web Services will be opening 3 major data centers. Their data region will be in Bahrain starting from the first quarter of next year. Huawei are rolling out 5G in Bahrain. So the physical infrastructure is very sexy and it's great to talk about. But from an economic development point of view, the secret sauce is in the soft infrastructure.
Sure.
So focusing on making sure that our people have the skills to access the digital economy and leverage on the digital economy is very important. Making sure that we've got the right regulations, because honestly, all these technological changes bring major challenges for government. If you just take fintech, making sure that you've got the right regulatory framework for crowdfunding, for peer-to-peer lending, for open banking. We've been writing laws and changing regulations like faster than we've ever done before because we need to. But Team Bahrain is really about being nimble. It's about getting everybody in the room, private sector, public sector, education sector, and really adopting a team approach to get things done very quickly. And that's what worked with Amazon Web Services, and that's what I think will work with some of the changes that we're working on right now.
And is it designed to attract companies of the size of Amazon, or is there a kind of a portfolio approach where you're looking to support a startup scene as well? Or?
I mean, Amazon's a big headline grabber, but the reality is, the thing that I'm most passionate about is the startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because the startup ecosystem, I mean, we often neglect small companies, but small companies often have a much more profound impact on the economy than major multinationals. Because small companies are homegrown, they're more loyal, they're more embedded in the local economy, and they don't do everything themselves, so they outsource a lot to other small companies. And if you have a homegrown small company that really gets traction and really grows, it can have a really big impact. So the startup ecosystem in Bahrain is growing from a low base, but it's really starting to get quite a bit of attention now globally.
Yeah. I really like how you talk about regulation, because I think everyone presumes the kind of opposite of innovation is inaction and staying the same. And I often think that regulation feels more like a constraint. And when you look at the companies that have really made a difference to the world, whether it's Uber or Airbnb or aspects of fintech, a lot of it plays very closely in the gray space around regulation. And when you look at things like vaping or fintech, like actually having clarity around what is okay and what isn't, I think is a superb way to drive growth. So Dr. Ahmed, when you look at Etisalat, and in particular your kind of role as a mobile operator or a broadband provider when it comes to innovation and the startup scene, how do you think you can start to empower a kind of generation of enterprise like that?
Etisalat is one of the unique things about Etisalat. It's a universal service provider and solution provider. So we are not a mobile operator only. We are into satellite, we are into e-marine, we are into academic and training, we are into mobile, fixed lines, broadcast, TV broadcast. So we have a multiple of know-how throughout the years. And I think for the, especially to startups, small to medium enterprises, I think the future is to provide them with the right infrastructure and also with the blessing from the government. I think we are really pleased to have such government which encourage every individuals and also corporations to really work smarter than harder. And I think what they have provided as the infrastructure, it's not about telecom only, it's about the whole infrastructure provided for investment in the future. And if we, what what I would suggest is to be a little of change in our thinking, and especially for the future. If we understand that about 45% of the existing task can be automated with the existing services, that will give us that there are something which is already invented, but we are not using it. So we need to inject such thing into our business. Another thing is that, I mean, the future employee requirement is to get more developers. If we know that there are more than 10 million developers existing now to develop a new and futuristic services or innovations, this will give us encouragement. 33% of the jobs which will exist in 2020 does not exist at this stage. So there are a lot of change and shift into the economy in terms of what the workforce is required, what kind of business could work, how it's going to be working, and then we have to adapt to the changes for the future. And what we have done in Etisalat, we have created a unit called Etisalat Digital. So we had a vision some time back, about 3 years back. So we have a whole unit has been created for different digital solutions. And I think this is helping a lot in the UAE. And also, if we take examples of different countries that we operate in 15 countries, serving more than 145 million customers, all the way from Mauritania and Morocco, all the way to Afghanistan and Pakistan. We see that there are different needs. Economies as a requirement is different from one region to another. Regulation is very important. Countries' encouragement for the e-services and also online services. Internet of Things will be playing a big role in the future. Artificial intelligence. If we're talking about contact lens, which can, with the blink, can give you, can put you online and can show you the whole world. If we're talking about the robots and what does do, especially in classrooms, in education, in health care. So we could see that there are a lot of existing services and existing economy that depends on the computing and also digital. We need to change also ourselves to really adopt the future now. And that's why we always aiming and we are trying to lead the digital future to empower the societies wherever we work.
When you think about the future, so this is to both of you too, what particular technologies or infrastructure or sort of software developments are you personally or professionally most excited about when it comes to growth?
So, well, let me take that question first. In a growth, right, the first and foremost is basically the infrastructure. Now, thankfully, the infrastructure has been in place. As the doctor said, the pressing need is about applications and how the applications can actually change the world. I give you one very vibrant example. Like Etisalat is valued $7.7 billion or something, whereas Uber is over $20 billion. Uber is only a software platform. You talk about Airbnb, you talk about Booking.com, and all those applications have changed the complete landscape and dynamics of the world. And they have actually become far more lucrative as far as the infrastructure cost or the revenues are concerned. And that have only happened lately just because the technology have enabled them to actually pursue the dream the way they wanted to. Now, let's take one example. Let's just stay back. Think of this. 4G is around 4G megahertz band is around 2.4 megahertz where the 4G travels. 5G is basically started to travel around 52 megahertz. So think the delta. This is right a huge, basically the advancement in the infrastructure which is coming in, which can only drive the requirement of building a lots and lots of applications and lot of platform. What I see now is going to happen is, and I can see it very safely, that 10 years down the line or maybe 5 years down the line, we see a lot of jobs are going, which were fundamentally based on knowledge economy. And their jobs are going, because now we have flux of information, flux of memories, and flux of data computational activities, which can allow those decisions to be made, which were doing by those human beings who were retain those information in the knowledge economy and pressing that. Talk about being doctor, lawyers, I can see these jobs are going. Pharmacists, they will actually go. As many things as those application platform can do for you, is basically where the world is heading. This world is also heading towards being connectivity. Whether you form that connect in shape of communication, or you form this communication in shape of business itself. Any businesses which has got the ability to connect with each other are propelling much more than actually non-conventional businesses. Therefore, the concept of marketplaces have actually come into the world. The connectivity, what Uber have done, Uber actually created a platform where all the actors who were actually performing those services have started to communicate with each other. And a third party, which is a bank, will enable their commerce need. And this platform will basically become the revenue stream for many millions of people who are unable to earn that money the way they used to now. Similarly, there are a lot of businesses are actually going to actually transform and change it itself. You see the airline industries, you see the hotel industries, they are having their own booking engine or what have you. But the amount of business which they receive from the common platforms such as aggregators like Booking.com, like Kayak and Travelgo and companies like that is astronomical. And similar thing, one very important disruption which is coming into the world, which fortunately we are actually been involved in for last 3.5 years now, is the logistics business. This is the business which actually have got $53 billion revenue in 5 countries of GCC. It yields $120 billion in the United Kingdom and around $2.8 trillion in China. The biggest industry of its kind, logistics, and when you see the logistics industry is absolutely disjointed. It's like a black hole. Nobody knows what's going on. Left hand doesn't know the right hand doesn't know the left hand. And because it is such a complex business, it's very difficult for the companies to actually have ever dare to actually just streamline and sort it out. But what we have done, taking the opportunity of the technology and taking the opportunity of all the infrastructure, we have actually developed a platform which is going to seamlessly connect this complete logistic industry around the globe. 2-3 years down before what we are today, we wouldn't have actually thought of doing that. The availability of IoTs, the availability of different gadgets and devices, the availability of now a perception, that they can actually perform their business through the mobile set, has now drive the many businesses come out from their hole and actually do different dynamics to their business, and then can be a very robust business for many of those. So answer to that, this is just a start. Let 5G comes and you will see your dream would realize that you can start doing for example Hyperloop. Let's take one example, right? Hyperloop was once a dream. It's happening in our country, just 2 years down the line. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, 12 minutes. Who would have thought? Imagine if the logistics could actually travel from Abu Dhabi to Dubai in 12 minutes. What impact of growth is going to bring to the world? And imagine if the same Hyperloop gets connected to the entire GCC and the cross borders. See, we are just ready to change this world. Yeah. And thankfully we are here.
It's interesting what you say about logistics. I was in Shanghai for 11/11 Singles Day, and they have a big screen in the media center where they show the revenue they're doing per hour. And in the first second, they did 500,000 transactions. And in the entire 24-hour period, they committed to over 1 billion parcel deliveries. And you look at that and you imagine waking up one day and realizing you've committed to delivering 1 billion packages all the way across Asia. It's good to want good problems in life, but when something like that happens, you realize the importance of all of this. So Simon, from your perspective in Bahrain, obviously you've been a big believer in the softer side, the software, education, regulation. Are there any particular technologies or knowledge that you think is going to be particularly profound?
Well, in some respects, we live in a really, really exciting world, right? I mean, all the changes you're talking about are amazing. But some things are getting very samey. Technology is getting totally ubiquitous. I mean, if I hold this up, do you know if this is an Apple iPhone, a Samsung, or a Huawei? From the back, maybe you don't. But 10, 20 years ago, if I was holding up a Nokia, a Motorola, you could probably guess which handset I was holding up. So things are getting very, very homogenized. And personally, I mean, the challenge for us as parents is what skills should our children have to really be enabled to take advantage of this brave new world of a digital ecosystem. And I think I'm a little bit counterintuitive here in that I feel that there's going to be a backlash. I think people are going to get sick of talking to a chatbot. I think that nobody is going to queue up at the Louvre in Abu Dhabi to see a picture that's been painted by a robot. I think people will crave the genuine interaction with other human beings. Even if it's quirky, even if it's unpredictable, they will crave that in the future. And so I think we have to also think about giving our children the skills that will complement what's going on with, you know, all the other technologies that are taking place, whether it be blockchain, whether it be AI, whether it be machine learning. So the things, I'm not a big proponent of saying we've got to have all our 7-year-old daughters learning coding at primary school, but I think the things that will be more difficult to replicate will be things like creativity, interpersonal skills, and interpersonal communication skills, and of course, critical thinking.
Yeah.
So these things I think we have to be quite mindful of in the future.
It's very interesting because it's very dramatic. People talk a lot about artificial intelligence in a binary way. So it's here to take our jobs. It's never like it's here to do some parts of our job which allow us to add value in more interesting ways. You know, it's always going to eat the role of accountancy rather than creating, you know, better accountancy processes that computers can do. In terms of kind of Etisalat's plans for the future, obviously 5G is going to be a huge thing for you. That allows you to gather vast amounts of data, which then allows you to develop artificial intelligence-like products. You know, what are your kind of big bets for the future when it comes to sort of investment like that?
We have launched 5G in Expo 2020 location commercially before a few months, and we have promised Expo 2020 that this spot, it will be the fastest and the most connected spot on Earth. And I think we are working with the Expo 2020 to achieve that. And I think the whole game changer will be 5G in the coming future. And we are not talking about few years ahead. We're talking about very small numbers of years. If we know that, I mean, for people who have attended GITEX this year, we have presented several services, which depends fully on 5G services. And one of them is the flying car. They have asked the manufacturers, which was a combine between Airbus and Audi. I said, well, this is a futuristic services. He said, no, you will see this on the road by next year. We're not talking about the future of 5 to 10 years ahead to make that changes in the technology and also the digital services. We're talking about months, and we're talking about very few years to see cars without drivers, parking by itself, taxis. It's already implemented in some places. And I think with the services, especially for the education sectors, the smart classrooms, where, I mean, at the early days, or even in some places now, when you have a body to just explain to the new doctors how the bodies look like, what's going to be there, the scanners and these things. Now you could see it all, you know, through augmented reality and artificial intelligence. You could see the whole thing without even see the body itself. We go deep into operations, from distant operations to different patients. Now the future is changing. The main thing is how to, there are a huge number of data available now, how to transform these data to information, so it will give us the knowledge, and then we create the wisdom in order to combine both knowledge economy and inject and integrate the digital economy into it to have a better solutions for the future.
So we're kind of talking about smart cities now, and 5G and the Internet of Things, when they kind of come together and manifest themselves into a physical space, that's the kind of world of smart cities. And I think Dubai made the list of the smartest city out of 362 cities that were surveyed. So far as you're working on this with your company, so what kind of initiatives are you putting into place at the moment?
So first of all, let me just give you my take on smart cities, which most of the time has been misinterpreted into different definition.
Yeah, I like this.
Most of the time people think that a smart city means the newest and latest technology. In my take, that smart city means that how beautifully you can actually roll out that technology, which can augment it in a way that it can actually do multiple or triple time impact through those resources. So it's about beautifully integrating the systems in a manner that you can get your best out from those systems. And Dubai is one of the biggest example of basically the smartest, creating a smart cities, We can go into the length of discussions about what gadgets being used to actually make it happen. I'm not actually into those discussions because that the time will not be enough. But let me just tell you that what is important, that we are actually creating a smart city in this country where the smartness of those are to ability to connect with others seamlessly. One services can be replicated without being used to invent that same technology again. When we talk about a city, or when we talk about a proximity which has got a smartness in it, this is what the smartness we talk about. Our infrastructures in those cities are connected with each other. The replication, duplication have been eradicated on a very larger scale. The common civic services which a citizen are getting those smart cities are of one or through a one window operations. These are basically the fundamentals of a smart cities. Similarly, we talked about building a smart logistic hub. We have Dubai South 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers down south from here. It's becoming the biggest logistic hub as a smart logistic hub in the world, where the intermodal connectivity of logistics can be performed here in a seamless manner. Whether you would like to connect your logistics through air, through sea or oceans, through hyperloops or trucking, all the world will actually get interacted or interconnected in here. And that is basically the real soul of smartness as far as the smart cities are concerned. So let's take one more example of being very smart here, not talking about city itself, but the services. We have a systems here called EID systems. We have our national identity cards here. Now, the same EID cards have been used for many various purposes and services which we never used to actually perform. That card can be used as your sole identity to your airport and exit and entry, and various. It has become your medical card for insurances, and similarly, it can be started to get conversion to many services in one card. That is what the smart is as far as the services for the city concerns. So yes, we are building those cities. We are actually building laying down the infrastructure of those cities, keeping the thing in mind that those cities are going to be in existence for next 50 years. So what we are doing is that when we are designing an infrastructure, creating an infrastructure in those cities, we are keeping not 1 or 2 days ahead, we are keeping 50 years of time ahead, and trying to actually just have a perception in mind that what might be the need of the citizen at that time. Of course, we can't actually cover up every kind of requirements from this time onwards, but we are trying and striving to do that. And that has happened because lately what we have actually seen, we have seen a very huge fundamental shifts of the way the government have actually performed and working. I give you a few examples. In 2001, we actually have a setup of an e-government system here in the UAE. And the initiative of e-government have been conceived with the perception that, that the citizen will actually have an ease of services. you know what, at that time, in Dubai I'm talking about, right, there are around 29 government departments who were involved in it and accumulatively producing e-services. We were accumulatively producing around over 3,000 e-services, where the entire Canada had only 313 e-services. And our ranking in United Nations was a 98 at that time, if I can recall it correctly. And in 2018, we are now ranked number 21 in the world in United Nations e-government. And this transformation is just like, it's like magic as far as I'm concerned. Now all governments started to produce e-services. You do not need to go to the counters to get services. You have the opportunity to get the services through your gadgets, through your phones. God forbid if you have to go to the driving license agency in the United States to get your driving license.
I was literally just thinking about that. I had to wait 6 hours in order to get someone to stamp a piece of paper that they then needed to fax to another department, and I had to come back in another day to collect it. And it nearly made me have a heart attack.
Yeah,
so.
not anymore, not anymore. Our labor department, immigration departments, all various departments are interconnected now. And this is what the smartness, whether you call it as a smart city of an existing time or for a pre-built city which has gotten smartness, or the new cities. So this is where the concept of the e-services.
But is this almost like a kind of like operating system, literally, or like as an analogy, or is it more like common standards and like protocols and more kind of specification based?
Yeah, well, the beauty is this, the government never dictates, what protocol you adopt to actually build your services. But the fundamental of the services has to be seen. And if the fundamental of the service is same, then the connectivity doesn't really just matter. So you can use the IBM framework, I can use Microsoft framework, somebody else can use any framework. They may ready to be choosing what frameworks they won't want to use. But if the services or e-services standards have been followed the way it's been laid down in this country, that all the government departments have converged them into that. And I think most of them who are actually living in this country will agree to me that we have seen such an ease of services in the last 5 years now, which you never used to be. It used to be a dream, but now it's just incredible, And I think that is what smartness is. And I think that is what make Dubai is the smartest city. Their new city will build on the principle of smartness, but what we have done here is that we started to bring the philosophy into existing infrastructure as well, and try to make the life easier for every common person.
Sounds great. I'm very jealous, actually, of a country where things just work. Like, I can't even get my printer to talk to my laptop sometimes, so the idea
you need an IT person.
The idea that Berlin and Barcelona can talk to each other is great. I am going to be opening this up to questions towards the end, by the way, so be thinking about ideas that you have that you want to test, or punchy questions or anything like that. Simon, you obviously, I presume you talk to other people that work in development, either for regions or cities or countries. And this is quite cheeky of me to ask, but are there countries or bodies that you look at and you're quite envious of with some of the technologies or the processes that they have? Or do you just go around feeling smug about your situation all the time?
Definitely not feeling smug. We've replicated a lot of what Singapore's done in terms of putting in place a regulatory sandbox for fintech. It's the first regulatory sandbox that is an onshore regulatory sandbox. And when we look at the smart city concept, it's a challenge for governments getting the balance right. If it's going to be too top down, then you can bring in big companies to bring in the technology, but are you stifling innovation from the bottom up? So, one of the things we want to do is roll out more accelerators to address smart city type concepts, to bring in founders and entrepreneurs from the region who can test ideas out of the bottom up, but also to match them up with big corporates. So getting our big telecoms companies to work with IoT hardware companies in our Brink accelerator is quite an exciting development that we have there. Looking at what we can do to really attract companies that have software as a service to capitalize on the Amazon Web Services big development. So we've got to come at it from both ends, and that's really the beauty of developing this concept of an ecosystem, because that really means a balance.
There is something quite nice about the size, I think. It's interesting to compare the notion of a country with the notion of a country. a company, and we think a lot about big companies and how powerful they are, but they're also very unwieldy, and they're kind of big and they're corporate and they can't make decisions. And when I travel around the world, you tend to see most innovation in markets like New Zealand or Estonia or Latvia because of the kind of size and the ability to sort of collaborate like that. Within Etisalat, obviously the role of government and policy and sort of clear decision making, has that been very beneficial for the way that you're able to sort of conduct business and make decisions and investments and get clarity?
I remember when we started doing the fiber to the home project, we have visited several of the advanced countries. We visited Singapore, Korea at that time, Japan, and they were ahead of us. We were, at that time, did not even start the fiber to the home. And they were about, some of them have achieved 5%, 10% with the government contribution, government support. We said, and we took a decision at that time, we said, we're going to go ahead for the fiber, for laying down fiber optic to the home. And in a few years only, we have achieved to be number one in the world, fiber to the home, fully connected. And and Abu Dhabi have been named the first city in the world which is fully fiber to the home connected. Now, I need to recall the big and the sharp vision of our of the country leadership. I remember a few years back when Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid have raised his phone and he said, I want the whole government services to be done through this. And I think such kind of encouragement was really a path for not only the government, the government, but also for telecom operators, and also for the different partners and manufacturers to really enhance either software or hardware that's required to have the smart city and smart government. And I think the jumping, if we look at the different international indexes, either competitiveness indexes or global indexes, we've seen how UAE have been jumped. It's not one or two posts, but jumped in, sometimes more than 16 posts to reach to the leading edge of either ICT, internet services or online services, and also the adoption of technology in the government. And I think such kind of integration between the full ecosystem, which related to the digital and providing the technology, have really gave us what we are witnessing nowadays in the UAE. And I think the major or the big thanks is for the government encouragement, because they've been aiming with this sharp kind of visions toward the future and acceleration of the services which we are seeing and examining in Dubai and also in the government of the UAE. That's a big example of see how we can, how would the leadership is really emphasizing and also encouraging all sectors to work toward the future.
This is a question to anyone that wants to take it, but when you read the technology press or you look at a Gartner presentation about quadrants or the hype cycle, there are so many technologies that appear to be the next big thing. So whether it's blockchain or hash graph or Internet of Things or edge computing or quantum computing, you name it, it's the future. Are there any particular things that you think are somewhat of a distraction to us, that are perhaps overhyped and underdelivered, or that somehow you have to be careful to navigate yourself around because you could lose a lot of time and energy on them?
Shall I?
We will take care of the infrastructure, so I'll give you the chance to.
I'm an advocate about technology. But since you talked about the adversity, I'm very sorry to say, but I think AI was the worst innovation which I've seen in the recent time.
AI?
AI, yeah. I think it is going to create a lot of disbalance. When the doctor said, a disbalance in our society.
Okay.
That is just my personal view. Um,
Go on.
Most of the time, talking about in favor of technology, I would like to actually tell everyone that, you know what, most of the time, many times I have seen people talking about technology and, you know, this who and how about technology. Sometimes I see that they do nothing but get scared by the technology. And I tell everyone that there is no need to get scared by the technology. The technology gets invented to get translated into your mind, into your life in a very simplest manner. And those who do not do that, they are out of the business anyway from the day first. The technologies which are coming in the world are now our lifestyle. You can't change it. For an instance, a 2 years or 3 years old kid, an iPad is his lifestyle. And 25 years down the line, when you're going to tell to your kids, your grandsons, that, you know, hey, buddy, we used to write it, they will say, you, Dad, you're that dated? So, abreasted, I would call it. You know, my 70-year-old mother have learned everything in technology as far as the communication technology is concerned. She is much more powerful than me. And that is because it has actually made her life easier. You know, her problem lies to get communicated with the kids. And, you know, she has learned it. So every time the new technology comes, you should adhere and adapt it. Because once you do it, you know, it will become very easy for you to conduct life. Second of all, the adversity, when you talk about technology, and when you talked about, you know, many technologies which have been rated XYZ numbers through various platforms, not only Gartners, you know, you got to see that, you know, what is good for you and how is going to be beneficial for you. You know, an iPhone may not be a right choice for gadget for me. I may be okay on Samsung or any other gadgets. I need to see that how much optimization I'm getting out from my gadgets. If I'm not making it work for me for over 80–90%, then it's useless for me to buy a phone for the heck of it. So it's all depends on up to us that how we want to actually abreast technology and how we want to converge into the benefit of us. And just because we are not going to take a complete benefit of it, it's not right to we say good or bad thing about that technology.
And I think to summarize this, we have to understand that all of us within this room, we are immigrant to technology and immigrant to the digital. And what we're going to see in the near future, our kids, they are the native digital people. And their needs is different than our needs now. So what we have to do is to think futuristic. If you give 2 years old any magazines, the first thing he will do like this. So it's not anymore about, just like what you said, it's not about pen and paper to write things. It's about how to think futuristic of what's the services and applications will fit the next generation.
Yeah. I remember my father didn't talk to me when I bought my first phone for 3 days. And he thought, you know, well, I'm totally vain now. But just 10 years down the line, you know, he was like, why the hell you don't carry your phone? I need to get connected with you. So like being immigrant and, you know, living as a native, you know, this is where the world would need to see. Very good, right, very beautifully put it.
I think it's interesting with young kids because you have to try and explain a lot of their reality in ways which are quite unexplainable. So the notion of a TV channel, for example, doesn't make sense to anyone that's been brought up in the last 5 years. Because you have to sort of say, well, there were TV channels and someone decided what you should watch. And then they decided at what time you should watch it. And then if you missed it, you just missed it. And then if you went to another country, you wouldn't be able to see that same show because they hadn't cleared out the rights for you to be able to see it. And I think a lot of our modern reality, if you try and explain it through the eyes of a 5-year-old, you realize that none of it really makes sense. So as I look out there, are there people kind of desperately keen on asking questions? Because audiences vary a lot in this regard. Any questions? Don't be shy.
Oh.
Okay, I don't know how we're going to do this. We got questions. We got 3 questions.
Got a mic.
We'll start over here.
You have the
And
mic.
they can be to any of us, ideally not me.
Tom, I think you have the mic.
I have two questions, one for Simon and one for Dr. Ahmed. I'm a startup from Bahrain, and I have a very interesting concept. The question for Simon, I think I probably would like to know now, with the EDB participating in a lot of forums, how can we benefit more from these kind of relationships, especially when it comes to working with the different partnerships, like in the UAE, and recently you've signed a number of partnerships. I'd like to sort of learn more about it, although I do read and I'm totally engaged with the EDB from that perspective. And how can other startups in the UAE benefit with all this cyber world and technology by coming to Bahrain when it comes to partnerships? For Dr. Ahmed, it will be interesting to see, you showed us a nice long list of developments. I used to work in the telecoms world as well, so I know it's always dynamic and it's always hectic and exciting because you actually see the future. Actually, you create the future. How much are you willing to help startups, not only in the UAE? What I mean by startups, tech startups, not only in the UAE, but from other countries. So you mentioned something about an innovation center. Is that reaching out only to Emiratis nationals, or is it open to other countries? Are you also open to working with the innovation center in the Kingdom of Bahrain?
You know, for when you're trying to develop a startup ecosystem, whether it was when I was in Hong Kong or now in Bahrain, facilitating global partnerships is really important, because the type of startups you want to encourage and grow are the startups that are born global. So you've got to give them the tools, the connections, the ability to network with other like-minded startups in other geographies, in other startup hubs. So developing those relationships is very important for us. It's also important because in Bahrain, what I think is really encouraging is the fact that we've got a really good mix of local founders and entrepreneurs, but we've also got people coming in from Saudi, from elsewhere in the region, from elsewhere in the world, forming multinational teams, multicultural teams. And if you're a startup that really wants to conquer the world, it's great if you've got this multinational, multicultural environment. But having partnerships, as we have here in Dubai and in Singapore, in Hong Kong, is also very important to give our startups that access to other hubs elsewhere.
Let's see if this one working. Yeah. With regards to the Innovation Center, what we have done is we created, let's say, what's the future need in terms of Innovation Center. It's based in Dubai. It's open for everybody to look at the different examples or solutions. At the end of the day, we are telecom operators. We are not developers of softwares. We are not, let's say, give hand in hand with the either startups or small to medium enterprises, rather than giving them the solutions, telecom solutions, telecom services, which really enable them to take care of their business and leave the telecom issues solutions for us, and we can provide it. In addition to that, within UAE, Etisalat contributes 1% of its revenue to something called ICT Fund, which is mainly based for research and development and innovation services. Innovators, they can approach it and they can provide, I mean, they support them with the different initiatives they have. And it is under the umbrella of the TRA, which is the regulator in the UAE. And I think a lot of companies and individuals have benefited a lot from that. And when you talk about 1% of a company like Etisalat, it's a huge amount. Mostly within UAE, I think they have the rules and regulations. I'm not really familiar if they are allowing other innovators, but I think it will give, at least will give the priority to the people who's going to do some kind of innovations within UAE. But as far as I know, it's not for Emirati only, but it is for the companies and individuals in the UAE.
Thank you.
I think we had a question over here.
Well, thanks, first of all, to the distinguished panelists. for a very thought-provoking ideas. I have two brief questions. The first question is, how do you see the role of research and development in assisting SMEs and startups to explore ideas in the areas of IR 4.0, artificial intelligence, robotics, big data, cybersecurity, additive manufacturing, and others? It seems to be that the R&D mostly is associated with big corporations, academic institutions, and research think tanks. The percentage and the contribution of R&D to SMEs is kind of minimal. And how can we improve this and create that ecosystem that promotes these future promising startups and SMEs in the areas of disruptive technologies? The second question is this. Having myself from the GCC, I see that the multinational corporations that invest heavily in the region and they build manufacturing facilities, they invest in research and development and technology development centers, but it seems their contribution in promoting tech-based entrepreneurship is not that tangible and impactful. Their R&D output usually is used for commercializing their own patent and IPs and technologies. Other than providing mentoring or advising the entrepreneurs, we don't see an active contribution from multinational corporations that are engaged in billions of dollars of business toward promoting technology-based entrepreneurship, which we desperately need in this region. So I'd like to hear kindly the respected panelists' views about these 2 points. Thank you very much.
I can give you some example from Etisalat where in terms of R&D, I have already stated that there are 1% contribution every year from our profit. In addition to that, we have built our academy, and it's like a university, which we are supporting different technical and non-technical courses for different entities. In addition to that, we, as Etisalat, we are the established of something called Etisalat Academy, which has been later on became the core for Khalifa University, which you know it now in the UAE. Etisalat have also contributed to build the full academy for medical academy in Sharjah, and has been contributed to the government. In terms of R&D, we also have different initiatives. In addition to what we are doing, we are taking some kind of different universities in a competition. An example of that, what we are doing now for 5G. 5G is a service which will be maybe for the public in coming a few months or a year, a few months, I would say. Now, we took some different college students to different countries, and mainly to Sweden, to show what kind of services that they might see in the future, and try to implement these and adopt their ideas to enhance our network to fit their requirement for the future. And also creating of competition between the universities for what is the best examples of technology that they would be requiring. That's in terms of infrastructure. But in terms of services, we are, utilizing our social media network to utilize, to gather customers' feedback in terms of what things that they would like to see within our network or services. And also, if there are some good ideas, this is being also referred to the R&D centers within the ICT fund.
It's a challenge. In Bahrain, there's a big gap in terms of the amount of spending on R&D compared to other economies. It's a gap we'd like to fill, but it takes time. We need to make sure we incentivize our universities not to be primarily just teaching establishments, but also research and development establishments. It's very important that we put in place the right funding mechanisms to incentivize them, to incentivize professors to engage in R&D in the future, and students. And we're looking to do that. We're looking to bring in, you know, universities from the UK, for example, such as South Bank, that are really, really good at commercializing practical research and taking it out into, spinning it out into startups. But R&D does take time. The problem for a very small economy is that you can't do everything. It actually doesn't count to be, if you know the tagline for Avis used to be, we're number 2, we try harder. When it comes to competing as an economy, nobody cares if you're number 2, all right? So, and for us, we can't be number 1 in everything. So Bahrain has to be a niche player, focus on some key areas, and really show that it's a leader in those key areas. And then channel the research and development into areas that will be effective. What is a quicker fix is persuading bigger corporates to engage in innovation and to ally themselves by setting up accelerators with the help sometimes of experienced organizations that can help them to do that, so that they can access the pool of talent that startups have. Because many millennials don't want to work for a big corporation. The only way you can access that talent is to have an incubator, get them to come in, and then to try and access the talent through those types of vehicles. So we're going to try lots of different things, but it's not easy.
I think on that note, we're going to have to end things. This has been a great discussion about risk, about ideas, about technology, about the past, today, the future. Thank you very much for all coming, and a big thank you for my panelists for a fantastic discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.